I'm so excited to be here with Janeth Bathorn. We've known each other for quite some time. I think it dates back to July 2015 when she signed up for one of my first, actually for my first group program.
Yeah.
And we are still in proximity today. So thank you so much for joining our show, Janeth, because you have quite a fascinating story that my audience needs to hear.
Thank you for having me. Yes, and I'm thrilled to tell my entrepreneurial journey because everything has been a journey.
Everything is a journey.
Yeah.
And when we started to work together back in 2015, you had already been an entrepreneur for quite some time.
Yeah, I started in 2005.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what did you do back then? And what has been your journey until now? I know we're going to talk about how to go on a cruise and make money while you're on a cruise. And I know that's what people really want to listen from this interview. But let us take you back to the time where you were not doing that yet. What were you doing as an entrepreneur?
So I started my entrepreneurial journey, like many others, I think, as an interim manager. So I got hired and paid by the hour, which felt after 2.5 years like being in a job again. So I had to go to meetings, I had to be in traffic jams, I had to be there on time. And my whole quest began with okay, how can I earn money and not leave the house, or at least not spend time in the cars for so long? So I started to figure things out about revenue models, about working online. I started to follow people like Natalie Sisson back in like 2011, 2012. She was one of the first women who started an online business. And that whole process brought me to, okay, so I need a group program. I need an online training. And I'm the kind of entrepreneur who just did it. So of course, I got some help with it. But in 2013, ages ago, I had my first online training ready. It was about LinkedIn. That was my topic back in the day. Social media and LinkedIn was one of my specialties. And I just did it. And if you have an online training and a group program, then you have to sell them. So that's how I finally decided to work with you, because launching 2015 was new in Holland, in the Netherlands. So I just had to figure things out, and I like it that way. I like to be figuring things out. I like to try new things, and it's been a journey. And now online work for me, in my bubble, in my world, and your world as well, it's so normal.
Yeah.
But if you leave your own bubble and talk to friends from your village or family, they're like, I don't know what you're doing, but hey, if you enjoy it, just do it. So it's very, very new.
Yeah. You have gone through several shifts in your business, like you pivoted from being known for a certain thing into being known for another thing. Now take us back to the first thing you were known for. Was, you said LinkedIn was your first training. Were you first known as a social media expert?
Yes, so LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah.
Social media expert. I wrote my first book in 2011 about social media. It was one of the first books in Dutch. So people have known me for a long time to be a social media expert for self-employed entrepreneurs. And there was a time like 4 or 5 years ago, I think 4 years ago, that for me it started to get a bit, maybe the word is not boring, but shallow. More like there is more to entrepreneurship than putting things on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. It's about personal development. It's about believing in yourself. It's about trust. It's about all these things that people talk about. So I had to figure out how to combine those aspects of entrepreneurship with social media. So then I slowly, everything took time. I mean, it's not that you have it in one day. Slowly, I figured out that there were 5 pillars to being a successful entrepreneur, and mindset is one of them. Social media for me and for online entrepreneurs is also one of them. But also working with clever systems, having the right network around you. So yeah, it turned into a framework now.
So you mentioned boring, shallow, whatever. Yeah, it lacked meaning or a deeper meaning. So you felt like there was more behind online business than just putting stuff on social media. And we both know that's true. Social media is just a distribution channel. You need content and
you
there
need
is
good content. You need authenticity. You need to speak up for yourself every now and then. It's much more.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I focused on tactics like in LinkedIn. People didn't know how LinkedIn worked. And it is quite a complicated site. So, well, you have to push here or press that button. You have to do this there. It was really like a school teacher. And I heard myself talking and telling the same stuff over and over again. I'm like, no, this has to go into an online training. I have to do other things.
Yeah. So you shifted after a couple of years as a social media expert into more, I recall back then, you were also part of my first mastermind retreat, Iceland, in 2016, where you said you want to shift away from being a social media expert and become as a freedom entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I have interviewed several people, including Chris Ducker, on this podcast about how to pivot in your business. And you are also one of the examples where you pivoted. Now you're known for a completely new thing. And now it's the freedom entrepreneur. And as we know, it doesn't happen overnight. It's probably a process of a year or 12, 18 months, I guess, to change your business so you don't lose revenue and you make a shift. And you said you discovered there were 5 pillars to, was that to the freedom entrepreneurship?
Yeah, to being a successful entrepreneur, an online entrepreneur, because social media is one of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, successful entrepreneurs, successful person, it's all about who am I as a person in my own business.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for me, it's a fascinating journey, because I started my university career like a couple of years ago studying psychology. I like psychology. I like to think about the brain and how people react, etc. And when I worked in big corporates, I started to do NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, the practitioner, the master NLP coach for 3 years in a row. Because I think that's the best development you can do for yourself. And I was not an entrepreneur back then. It has been my process.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, if I would be 18 again, I would pick other studies. I would do something else in order to have gotten here. But I mean, this is life. We make choices, and then we have to do something else, probably.
Yeah. And it's very normal to pivot, actually, a couple of times. You know, I've pivoted a few times in my business, you know, like luckily I called my business Sigrun from the very beginning. So I don't have to change the name of my business. But yeah, the business develops with you and with your clients.
Yeah.
And so the freedom entrepreneur, what drew you to calling it freedom entrepreneur? What was you went from being a social media expert, speaking at conferencing, writing books, being the school teacher, teaching people social media, to this big concept of freedom entrepreneurship. Why?
Yeah, because so I have several gifts or talents or whatever. What I really like is travel. I like to write, and I like to think about how we react as persons. And what I discovered, we live in a Western society with a lot of emphasis on getting things done, on getting results, overachieving, more or less. So we live, I must say, in a quite stressful society. And if you travel, especially if you go like to Asia or South America, people just sit on the side of a road for hours. They play games at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they meet up to have a coffee, and we totally lost that balance, I think. And as an entrepreneur, I think the pressure, I can only say it for myself, the pressure is higher. If you're an entrepreneur, there's always something to do. There's always an email or a message or whatever. When I worked in corporates, it was like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, I'm out. And then you just stop working. And now, as an entrepreneur, you really have to be a good boss for yourself. And the result is freedom, but the process is something else.
Is it freeing yourself from that stress? That's basically what you mean, being a freedom entrepreneur.
Yeah, from the stress, from the voices in your head, from the feeling that it's never enough. So a lot of my clients, they have good businesses. They are successful entrepreneurs, but somehow they don't have the time to walk with their dog, or do something with the kids, or have time for their hobbies. So freedom is about gaining back what you really like. So it could be a hobby. It could also mean training for a marathon or whatever. Yeah. Freedom it's personal.
Well, it's basically like this wheel of life exercise I do in some of my programs, where I ask you to look at all the areas of your life and see if they're in balance, if the wheel is really turning. And if it's not, it's probably going to affect your entrepreneurship, because if we're not happy, if we're not taking care of our health or nutrition or
that's it. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Now we come to the traveling part, because that's one of your big passions, and related to the main topic of this episode. Where did that come into all of this? Okay, so you moved into the freedom entrepreneur. You recognized there were several pillars, business models, how to sell it. And I know you recently wrote a book on money mindset.
Money mindset, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Where does the travel come into all of this?
The travel comes in if your business allows you to travel. So if I travel, I mean, you're on the road as well. If you're in an airplane, you cannot help clients. You cannot produce, or you could produce content, but you're not really productive. If I travel, I'm normally a bit tired, or just watch a movie or whatever. I'm not one of those travelers that say, well, I wrote 4 blog posts and my whole book is ready now. For me, it's a slow time. But I mean, if you work in a corporate, we are used to having one big holiday per year and a weekend every now and then, and that's it. And once you decide that you are an online entrepreneur, you can travel to cool places, cool conference, meet cool people. But it's still, for me, that costs money. I don't get paid to go to the social media marketing world. I have to invest. Mm-hmm. So slowly I started to discover that I could also travel, take people with me, work, and normally you would call it a retreat or whatever, and earn money. And
at the same time.
At the same time. And I'm not the kind of entrepreneur or the kind of person that would say, well, we go to Ibiza and we have a yoga retreat there or whatever. No, that's not my kind of traveling. So I am always on the lookout for stranger destinations.
Yeah.
I like undiscovered countries, if you could talk about that. But then the stupidest thing is that I did a very, very cheap transatlantic cruise as a participant, not as a workshop host or whatever.
When was that?
In the first one was in 2015, the end of 2015, I think. Yeah, 2015. Mm-hmm. So from the cold of Europe, I left in Mallorca in Spain, to the warmth, the heat wave in Brazil, in Salvador. We left the ship, so it was very, very hot. And during that cruise, I have never been on a cruise before, and I've never done a transatlantic. And I think I had the same thoughts as everybody. Well, it's maybe boring. There's a lot of old people. What am I going to do on the ship for 7 days? Well, I took books and I was like, I can survive that.
Mm.
But I found the opposite. I found out that being on a ship on the ocean for 7 days and seeing only the water was healing. I know this is more of a fashion word, but it was. You have the time to really reflect on yourself, on your business, on the things you do. There was no internet. There were no distractions. I didn't have to do the shopping. I didn't have to do the cooking. It was only me.
Mm.
And that was a liberation, that
Yeah.
you could find peace and quiet on this big cruise ship.
Yeah.
Because it's a village of its own. And when we finally saw the land of Brazil and we saw the harbor, I was feeling sad that I had to leave the ship. And I still have that feeling. If the crossing is over, I'm sad. Because it's so good to be on that ship and to be in this mini bubble in the world. You don't have to watch television. It's only about waking up when you want to, go to the gym, go to the swimming pool. Of course, you can eat and drink whatever you want. I mean, that's what some people just go for the food and the drinks. But for me, it's a total relaxation. I don't have to clean my room. Everything is done for me. And I can read 10 books in a day if I want to.
And you got an idea, a business idea from that first participation in the Transatlantic Cruise.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I thought this was so great. More people, more entrepreneurs need that feeling of total disconnection from their home and total relaxation.
Yeah.
So then that's how I do things. I just decided to do it. So I made a reservation for, I think, 10 cabins. With an option, and the year after that I just went on this cruise with, I think we were in total with 16 people.
16 people, wow.
Yeah,
on your first
but some
maybe.
people took their partner, etc. So not everybody was, for me, a paying customer, but for me it was the confirmation that it is possible.
Yeah.
And now I did 5 crossings already. I know exactly at what point people start to get bored, is not really the word, but there's always this moment when people start to cry. They hit the wall, and they really, because there's nothing to do. You have to really think about yourself and your business. That's what we are there to do. We talk about personal development, about what makes you tick, why are you doing what you do. It's more the deeper questions of being an entrepreneur. It's not about I sell this or I do that. So a lot of people cry, and that's normal. I warn them for that. That's normal. And there are some unexpected results, like divorces and people stopping radical with things that they did in their business, or always pleasing their family or whatever. They're like, and now it's done. Now I'm going to do something else.
They finally have time to reflect, and they have never maybe done it, or maybe for years not taking the time to reflect. So they have this opportunity for a few days, and they have someone like you, a coach, with them to go through those feelings. And
that's it. Yeah.
Suddenly it's like, wow, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's also the power of the group, because there's always someone to talk to. There's always someone that can help you relieve some stress, or do sometimes they even do massages on them on each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with that. And sometimes people sing together. The last cruise we had someone, she was really a gifted piano player. And on this cruise ship there were, I don't know the English word, the pianos, the big ones, the long ones.
Yeah.
I don't know their names, but they produce good music. So she was allowed to play in the theater in the afternoon when there was no one there. There were no rehearsals, no shows. Mm-hmm. So at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, she could play there. And she was really happy to do that. And sometimes people joined her just to listen to her or to sing with her.
Yeah.
And that's also liberating. It's also like, here I am on this stage and nobody's listening, but that's not the point. You do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I have some special gimmicks. I try to convince people to join me in the karaoke because I think you have to make a fool of yourself. That's one of
the personal development breakthroughs.
Yes, just do it. And in order to help them, I try to have them wear rainbow dresses or a rainbow scarf. Just like it's a gimmick. It's like we are a group, we belong together, and if you start to sing in the karaoke, we are there as a choir. We help you, we support you, and that really helps people. It's stupid, I know, but it really helps.
Well, it doesn't sound so stupid to me. I am a certified Dale Carnegie trainer, and one of the things, I was actually talking about this recently, Dale Carnegie has long passed away, but when he created his first Dale Carnegie course, he ran out of material and started to improvise and just did funny exercises. And by doing something really funny and stupid in front of a group of people, you actually can have some personal breakthroughs. So it doesn't sound or weird or anything to me, because
okay, so it works. Yeah. I know it works as well, and because of the dressing up with the rainbow dresses or the flowery dresses, being a group, and the only thing I say up front, it's important that we make fun, that we make people laugh.
Yeah.
That because there's always, I don't know why, but karaoke's are very popular. There's always a lot of people watching. They like it. So I say we have to pick some songs that are happy, that make people, that make them feel happy, that they can clap along or whatever. That's the only job we have. So don't focus on yourself and your own fear, focus on the audience.
Yeah.
And we always get bravo, bravo. And yeah, and if we walk on the ship with the rainbow, oh, that's the girl with the rainbow dresses. There they are. So yeah, it's
so now like you've done 5 transatlantic cruises, and it's become kind of your thing. I don't know anyone else that does anything similar, and you have a big one coming up.
I have a big one coming up because my biggest group was 16 or 12 people, and I organized it so that I did one-on-one coaching with them on the ship. And of course, that's not a scalable model.
Yeah.
So the big one coming up is that I want to transform it into an international cruise. So first the language was Dutch, and now it will be in English. And I want to take 100 entrepreneurs with me. I want to give the opportunity to 100 entrepreneurs to be on that ship, to work together, and to benefit from all the cool people that are there.
Yeah.
So there will be keynotes, but also workshops. It will be more of an like a cafeteria model. You can pick what you need. And just surround yourself with 100 cool people. It's going to be such an amazing experience.
I know.
I'm sure about that.
I'm sure. And I know already a few people going with you, and I probably will know a few more before it's happening end of next year, right? November.
End of 2019, November or December 2019. I'm still negotiating with 2 different cruise companies because, of course, I want the best deal for my group.
Yeah.
But it's going to be November or December. We will leave from Italy or Spain, and we will end in the Caribbean because I love the Caribbean. I love the Caribbean islands. So the cruises, so the negotiations now are with the end in Guadeloupe, a French Caribbean island. I mean, the name Guadeloupe. And maybe a stopover in Barbados. I don't know. There are so many cruises to pick from. But
So this has become kind of your signature program. And you say, cruise the world and make money. It's because you take the clients with you on this journey. But that's actually, that's the excitement about it. That's for them, the clients, to be with you. But also you are getting, rewarded basically by having the clients with you. And many of these clients continue with you in other programs, like group programs that you have.
They have started in a mastermind, or they start with a mastermind group after that. For me, what I really like that people join me on this cruise. It's everything is a trust business. Everything is trust. Some people never have left Europe before, so they have been in an airplane, but not for 10 hours to get there or to go back, because I also did some cruises starting in the Caribbean, going back to Europe. But this one is the other way around. So if we finish in Guadeloupe, it will be in December. So of course, I'm going to stay there for a couple of days and enjoy the good weather before I fly back to the cold Netherlands. So yeah, some people have never been on an airplane for 10 hours on a row. They have never left Europe, and they feel confident that they can do this with this group, with us.
Yeah.
And that's I think that it's important to know that it's safe to do those things, and to it's also for you. That's the feeling that you need to have. It's also possible for you.
And it's not holiday, although I bet some people view it as holiday. It's a part, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to take that time to reflect.
Yeah, it's work. It's a business trip.
Yeah.
It's fully tax deductible. So everything is, that's why you can book the cabin through me. You get an invoice for that, but you have to book your own flight, for example. And if you want to postpone your trip, if you want to stay in Guadeloupe for a bit longer, you have to book your own hotels. I'm not a travel agent. I don't want that responsibility. So, but it means that everything you book and everything you pay, everything is on the business. It's not a holiday. No. So yeah, for your tax reports, it's also it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to spend your money on those things, I think.
And you say after people have gone on that trip, sometimes unexpected things happen, but also some big shifts in their business. Can you tell us a couple of examples of things that have kind of happened as a result of people being on that transatlantic journey with you?
Yeah, people deciding that it's finally time to stop doing the consultancy and interim work and finally step into the online world. So there was until now only one guy joined me. He was on the cruise like 1.5, 2 years ago, and he was always very busy in his company. And he said, well, this is not freedom for me. So, and he joined me, and now I got a message from him in the Facebook group that now he started to shoot the videos for his online training. So it took him, of course, it took him more than a year to finally start, but I think the whole process started back then because we checked out his business model, and I said, well, this is not scalable. It will mean that you will always have to work very hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was his own conclusion as well.
Yeah.
People selling their practice and started to also start to work online. And also, what I really like is that a lot of people see the opportunity of traveling or doing retreats with other entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the cruise, but there's other people that like to do hiking. So they take people to Nepal or to other countries with mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's seeing other possibilities, and it is feeling for women mainly. It's also the feeling that you are not only a mother, for example, that you are a completely independent person who happens to have a business and some kids.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, a lot of female entrepreneurs, they cannot disconnect from their kids. So they cannot leave. That's a reason not to join this cruise. They cannot leave their kids for 2 weeks. That's what they say. And I say, well, your kids will be very happy to live without you for 2 weeks. Yeah. Leave them alone. Just give them some time with their grandparents or friends or their father or whatever, they can manage without you.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And maybe they will have to get used to it, but they can do it. So that's also part of the role that I have in my community. Kids can do without you. They like it if you leave, do some strange things maybe, and then you come back with some nice gifts or experiences, crazy photos, and
a happy person.
And a happier person, yeah. If you stay at home and say, well, I can do it this because of the kids, in fact, you blame them for not developing yourself. Yeah. And I don't like that. No, you can always find an excuse not to do things. It's the kids, it's your mother, it's whatever. But,
well, it reminds me of, if you talk about, for instance, meditation or something like that. I don't know if it was Tony Robbins or someone else who said, if you don't have 10 minutes a day, you don't have a life. I want to compare that to not being able to go on a week or a 2-week transatlantic cruise. If you can't do that, do you have a life? Do you have freedom? Are you a true entrepreneur if you can't do that and you're having your family or your business accommodate for that? It's also learning how to set up a business so that you actually can go away for 1 or 2 weeks.
Yes, it's also the feeling that you can leave for 2 weeks. And of course, you have to prepare some things. You need a VA or a team to take care of a couple of things. If the kids are a bit smaller, you need someone to babysit them or bring them to school, or of course. But the good news is that is possible, and that there are a lot of people willing to help you, either paid or even unpaid. It's not a problem. It's just doing it and asking it.
Anything is possible, especially if you ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll link to your website in the show notes, of course.
Yeah. And the waiting list is open.
The waiting list is up already for the next cruise. And yes. We suggest that you check that out if you're listening to this episode. And Jeanette, any final words for people who possibly want to pursue a similar business model like yours?
That's also your advice. Stop overthinking and just start experimenting. If you want to take people on a retreat, for example, be happy with the first 3 or 4 people that want to join you. So start small and think big. That's the only way to grow.
Perfect. That's exactly also how I did with my treat. I didn't start with less people, but I started with a lower price. You know, you might lose a little bit money in the first one, but then you build it up and it starts to be a profitable venture. So that's fantastic. Stop overthinking, start doing. Jeanette, it's always a pleasure. And I wish you best of luck with your next cruise.
Yes, thanks a lot for having me.